You know, some stories from history are just so epic they feel more like myth. And the tale of 300 Spartans staring down an entire empire? That's definitely one of them. But here's the thing, it was real. For 3 insane days back in 480 BC, this tiny little mountain pass became the stage for one of the greatest last stands in human history. So let's dive into how this legendary battle really went down.
So picture this. The Persian emperor, pretty much the most powerful man on the planet, sends a message to the Spartan king Leonidas demanding he and his men lay down their weapons. Leonidas' response? Just 2 words. Molon labi. Come and take them. I mean, wow, that single phrase just perfectly captures the unbelievable defiance of this small group of Greeks standing in the way of an absolute juggernaut.
All right, so how did we even get to this point? Well, let's set the scene. The year is 480 BC. About 10 years before, the mighty Persian Empire tried to invade Greece and got a shocking, totally humiliating bloody nose from the Athenians at the Battle of Marathon. Now, the new emperor, Xerxes, is back, and this time it's personal. This isn't just a raid, this is a full-blown invasion, fueled by revenge and a desire to conquer everything.
As you can see, this whole thing didn't just happen overnight. That decade after Marathon was just simmering with tension. Xerxes spent years planning this thing down to the last detail. I mean, he built bridges of boats for his army to cross a strait of water, and even had his men dig a massive canal for his navy. So when his army finally marched into Europe in 480 BC, it was, without a doubt, the biggest invasion force the world had ever seen.
Okay, let's talk about the sheer scale here. The ancient writers, who loved a bit of drama, claimed Xerxes had millions of soldiers. So many, they said, that they drank entire rivers dry. Now, modern historians think it was probably closer to 300,000. But honestly, even that number is just staggering. For the small, scattered city-states of Greece, that might as well have been millions. The odds were just impossible.
So, what do you do if you're the Greeks? You can't possibly fight this army in an open field. You'd be crushed. So you get smart. You devise this brilliant, almost desperate plan to use the land itself as your best weapon. The whole strategy was to make the Persians' greatest strength, their insane numbers, totally useless. And they found the absolute perfect spot to make their stand, a narrow pass called Thermopylae, which literally means the hot gates.
The idea was so simple, and that's what made it so genius. Think of it like a funnel. The pass at Thermopylae was squeezed tight between these massive mountains on one side and the sea on the other. At some points, it was so narrow, a single chariot could barely get through. It was the perfect natural choke point, a place where a small, tough-as-nails force could hold off a much, much bigger one.
Now here's a really crucial point that often gets lost in the legend. While we always call it the story of the 300, it wasn't only 300 Spartans. King Leonidas was leading a combined force of about 7,000 soldiers from all over Greece. Don't get me wrong, the 300 Spartans were the elite heart and soul of this defense, but this was a team effort. This was Team Greece standing together, a detail that's absolutely essential to the real story. The Greeks also had another ace up their sleeve, one that was perfect for this battlefield. The average Greek hoplite was basically a walking tank, covered in heavy bronze armor, carrying a huge shield and a long, deadly spear, all while fighting shoulder to shoulder in the phalanx formation. The Persian soldiers, on the other hand, were lightly armored, often carrying wicker shields and shorter weapons. In the tight squeeze of the pass, it was quality over quantity, and the Persian numbers meant almost nothing against that Greek wall of bronze and iron. So, when Xerxes finally arrives, he looks at this tiny force blocking his path, and he honestly can't believe it. He literally waited for 4 whole days, just assuming they'd see his massive army and run away in terror. But they didn't move. They just stood there. So on the 5th day, Xerxes finally gets fed up and orders his army to attack.
What happened next was just mind-blowing. For 2 full days, it was a total meat grinder. Wave after wave of Persian soldiers crashed against the Greek line and just broke. The Greeks were brilliant, rotating their troops to keep everyone fresh, and they held the line with what looked like impossible ease. Xerxes even sent in his best of the best, the elite 10,000 Immortals, and they couldn't break through either. The historian Herodotus says Xerxes literally leaped from his throne in a rage 3 separate times, watching his best troops get cut to pieces.
After 2 days of total failure, Xerxes is at a loss, but then a villain enters the story. A local guy named Ephialtes, hoping to get a huge reward, comes to the Persian king and tells him a secret. There's a hidden path through the mountains. a path that would let the Persians get behind the Greek army and surround them. For that one act of betrayal, his name, Ephialtes, became the actual word for nightmare in modern Greek. That's how deep that wound went.
By dawn on the third day, Leonidas finds out about the betrayal. He knows the game is up. They're surrounded, and the position is lost. He realized that if the whole army tried to run for it, the Persian cavalry would just mow them down in the open. So he makes one of the toughest calls in history. He orders most of the Greek army to retreat and save themselves, while he and a small rearguard would stay behind and fight to the death to cover their escape.
And this was the handful of men who stayed. The 300 Spartans, of course, their laws basically forbade them from ever retreating. But here's the amazing part. 700 soldiers from a city called Thespiae refused to leave. They chose to stay and die with the Spartans. A group of Thebans also remained, though history isn't quite sure why. But together, this tiny force prepared to make one final hopeless stand.
The sheer guts of these men in the face of certain death is just legendary. There's a story that when one of them was told the Persian archers were so numerous their arrows would actually block out the sun, a Spartan named Deinachus just shrugged and said, "Good, then we shall have our battle in the shade." I mean, that is the most Spartan response of all time.
Knowing the end was here, they didn't just wait to be killed. No, they went on the attack one last time, charging into the open to take down as many Persians as they could. They fought until their spears broke, then they drew their swords. Leonidas himself fell in the thick of it. The last survivors scrambled back to a small hill where, according to the histories, they fought with their bare hands and teeth until they were finally buried under a storm of Persian arrows.
Later, on that very hill, a monument was put up with an inscription that is echoed through history. "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." It's one of the most famous lines from the ancient world, a perfect tribute to doing your duty no matter what the cost.
So let's be clear. In purely military terms, Thermopylae was a defeat for the Greeks. The Persians won the battle and took the pass. But that's not the whole story, not even close, because in every other way, it was a massive moral victory for Greece and one that cost the invaders dearly.
Just look at these casualty numbers. Xerxes paid an incredible price for that narrow strip of land. He may have lost around 20,000 men just to get past a few thousand Greeks. This battle proved to everyone that the invincible Persian war machine could be hurt and it could bleed. It showed the Greeks that yes, they could stand up to this empire.
So why did this defeat matter so much? Well, first, that delay, as short as it was, gave the city of Athens just enough time to evacuate. But more importantly, the story of what happened at Thermopylae spread like wildfire. It became a rallying cry that united all of Greece. Their sacrifice is what directly fueled the fire that led to the huge Greek victories later at Salamis and Plataea, which finally ended the invasion for good.
And that's really the heart of the Thermopylae story. It was a tactical loss that turned into a massive strategic and spiritual victory. It's a powerful reminder that victory isn't always about who's left standing at the end of the day. Sometimes it's about the ideas and the spirit that refuse to die. And it leaves us with a pretty deep question, doesn't it? What is it that truly makes a defeat immortal?